When I first started online, makes it sound like, grandpa, had to walk uphill both ways to school, but we actually had an offline credit card processor. So I took orders from a secure website and then actually had to process the orders separately. They didn't process at the same time somebody was ordering. That's the original 1996.
Back in 1996 compared to today, almost 20 years later, right? So 19
More than 20 years later.
more than 20 years later, almost 30 years later. Um, what are some of the differences that you're seeing as far as markets, as far as media, as far as techniques? What stands out for you?
Well, a lot of things are going to have changed from then till today. Of course, we have so much more technology. We have so many more tools that make things a whole lot easier. When I first started online, makes it sound like, grandpa, had to walk uphill both ways to school, but we actually had an offline credit card processor. So I took orders from a secure website and then actually had to process the orders separately. They didn't process at the
Right.
same time somebody was ordering. That's the original 1996. Okay, so we have all these automation, we have all these tools, we have AI that's taken over everything and is only going to get better in the future coming up. So you have all these differences that makes things easier, faster, and more effective. Now, oh, what we're also going to have at the same time, you're going to have more competition.
Yeah.
So no matter what market you're in, it's going to be more competitive. So we work really hard on, I will tell clients that we choose a big market. So we choose a market that has a lot of customers in it, we has a lot of demand in it, and has a lot of competitors in it. Because I don't want to go to a market today that doesn't have any competitors, because that means everybody failed. Okay.
Oh, okay.
What we'll do instead is we'll take this big market and then we'll start niching it down. So how can we be unique? How can we make a unique promise in this market? How can we stand out against the competition? So that's a much bigger factor in going into a market today, is looking at what everybody else is doing and how can we find the gap that's still there. And many times, a quick tip of finding that gap is, a lot of times it's focused on the audience themselves. I do so much of my focus on the audience and what makes them stand out. And I'll say right now, when we're in a period where there's a lot of turmoil around the world, there's a lot of people talking about recessions, things like that. Always get more focused on, I'm in this big market, but what does the most affluent portion of this market want? What are they buying? The top 5%, the top 20% in this market, what are they wanting? What's in most demand for them? And that's the type of audience you want to go after. And like one quick tip, this doesn't apply to everybody, but if you're selling any type of info product, a lot of times your audience is going to be a little bit older than you expect, especially the affluent audience, because
Mm.
many times those who are older have more money. And I'll say, for my clients selling info products across consumer markets, a lot of their best buyers are 45 plus, even if it's a market that you might think was often younger than that.
Yeah, that's a really cool observation. I think Dan Kennedy has a whole book about it, about affluent buyers that he wrote many years ago. He basically said the whole thing. He also has a book about baby boomers, I think, like a whole book about why boomers are should be the target of your advertising, because they actually hold on to most of the money in America. But
Mhm.
I wanna circle back to what you said about markets with competition, because that's such a counterintuitive point. Um, as somebody who teaches people how to get started online, naturally I get a question about niche selection, market selection. I had to teach it a few times over the last year, and usually people are extremely they're sort of taken aback and be like, "What? But there's so much competition in that market. Why would you go there?" Um, and yeah, you absolutely want to go there, because if there's no competition in some other market, it means everybody failed. Like, I've never had anyone put it that way. I heard people say, well, if there's competition, there's money to be made. But I've never heard the other end of it, where it's like, if there is no competition, then everyone died, or everyone failed, or everyone burned their money and wasted their time and they couldn't make it work. So that's so smart.
Well, you asked the question based off of what was different, 27 years ago to today. And I can tell you, 1996, sure, you could find all kinds of markets that had no competition in
Yeah.
them. But today, you know, right now, I'm not smart enough to figure out a market that no one's ever thought of before. Okay, that is too much arrogance to think that you've somehow figured out a market that all the other billions of people on this earth hadn't thought of yet. So somebody's been in the market. So unless there's people who are successful there, then that means everyone failed. And at the same time, you know what I really like? A lot of these consumer markets now, you're not going to see this in Make Money. Okay, Make Money has some awesome competitors, people who know what they're doing, and you have to really narrow down to the niche that you're going after inside the big market of Make Money. But you go in some of these other markets, and what I really love in a consumer market is when you find a market where you know there's people making money, so there's a lot of competitors there, but the majority of them are doing a really bad job.
Hmm.
That is a dream market to me. Lots of competitors making money, doing a bad job of it at the same time, because that means you can go in and use good direct marketing principles and clean up in the market.
Yeah, yeah, you're basically staking up the odds in your favor, especially if you've got any
Mhm.
skills. That's that's really cool. Yeah, the other thing I was thinking about, what is different in the last 27 years. I think the barrier to entry is now
Mhm.
so low, both in terms of how much money it takes to start an online business, as well as the technical skills you need to have. Because even when I started, you still had to know how to use the FTP client to upload files. You still had to know how to work with WordPress. You still had to know how to write some basic HTML code, because most websites that you'd be building would be, either HTML pages or whatever, or WordPress or whatnot. Now everything is a drag and drop. Everything is online SaaS platforms. You don't really have to understand much of anything at all. And AI, of course, makes it even easier, because now there's AI that's creating an entire e-commerce website from just a keyword or something.
This is definitely true. So the technology makes everything easier. But I'll say this is an advantage we have if you're smart about it, is I got my foundation with those core direct marketing principles, the Gary Halbert principles, all of those. And you're going to find that a lot of people get so enamored with the technology today that they don't learn the basics. They don't learn the basic foundational direct marketing principles of how you sell. And see, now I'm going to mention something that hasn't changed
Okay.
in the last 27 years and isn't going to change in the near future either. And that's human nature. I could say back 2,000 years, human nature hasn't changed, which means the selling process, the overall messaging that we use hasn't really changed either. Now, how we deliver it might change, but the actual core message and what convinces people to buy hasn't changed. And so one of the best things you can learn is how to persuade people. Learn the basic persuasion skills for email, for sales pages, for videos, for all these principles. And it's all the same message. It's just core selling to people that a lot of your competitors that know how to use all the technology aren't learning how to sell. And you end up getting lost at that point in time. I have all the tech, but you can't sell.
Right. Well, a lot of people are afraid of this word, sell.
Mhm.
There's like, I'm not a salesperson. I don't want to be a salesperson. It's dirty. But I agree with you that fundamentally, the way people buy and what they think they're buying doesn't really change. So the actual thing that they're buying might be a little bit different compared to 10 years ago, but the underlying reasons, both emotional and logical, as to why they're making the purchasing decision, those don't change at all. The primary motivations, such as fear, greed, love, wanting to be accepted, etc., that doesn't change at all. And speaking of these things, I completely agree with you that this is the things you absolutely have to know. In other words, if you suck at tech, but you are at least medium to advanced as far as human psychology goes, and as far as being able to perceive why people are buying, or you educate yourself on these things, you can quite quickly succeed. While if it's the other way around, when you're super technical but you're completely ignorant about the other stuff, there's no way you're going to succeed. So with that in mind, do you mind sharing maybe a few resources, your favorite resources that you recommend to your clients, as far as being able to hone your skill when it comes to perceiving who's buying, why they're buying, what is the driving purpose of them hitting that buy now button?
Well, I'm going to be self-promotional first here. Hopefully, it doesn't offend you too much for that. And I'll say I give away a free report. Actually, there's a free cheat sheet for the Golden Glove on my website. I think we have a link for that that you'll probably share
Yeah, I'll
along
share.
with this.
You can also
Yep.
state it out loud, and if you
Okay.
remember it.
But it's over at mymarketingcoach.com/golden-glove. And you can pick up a free cheat sheet, which is the 5 steps. I call it the 5 fingers of the Golden Glove. And I'll throw them out right here real quick. It's desperate problem, unique promise, overwhelming proof, irresistible offer, and a reason to act now, and how you apply those 5 principles no matter what you're using online. That's inside the cheat sheet. Plus, you get several videos that teach you that as well. So now we'll get past the commercial section of me answering that with a commercial.
Back to
And I'll
Super
say
Bowl.
okay, there's a lot of really good books on selling. And as weird as it may sound, a lot of times I would tell people to go back to some of the older
Mm,
stuff. And that would mean look up some of the stuff by John Caples. Look up from some of the stuff by Joe Sugarman. These are just books you can go over on Amazon and pick up some of their books. There's a lot of really good books. If you can go, Gary Halbert, I think his son still has all of his newsletters
that's right.
online. You can look for Gary Halbert's newsletters and read through all those. As I said, he was one of my foundational things that I learned from.
Yeah,
There's a lot of things, and all his newsletters are free
yeah.
to read online.
Harry's writing is almost hypnotic. Like when I reread
Mm-hmm.
his newsletter issues, especially the one about water, where he's sharing the sales letter he wrote about water. It's like, how do you sell water? It's like the most mundane, commoditized thing in the Western society, and he made me excited. Wow, that guy could write insane. It's there's a resource that I've never heard anyone talk about. There's this author, I really really like him, Robert Greene. He wrote the 48 Laws of Power. I think that's his most famous book. Now, 48 Laws of Power is a book about manipulation, mind games, tactical warfare, etc. So it's not everyone's cup of tea. Like, you really need the stomach for that book. But he actually wrote a different book, I think, after 48 Laws of Power. It's called Seduction, that I really, really enjoyed. Because what is seduction? It is marketing. It is the art of getting someone to like you, trust you, and want to do your bidding, basically. And that book outlines lots of really, really cool, proven principles as far as getting people to like you, trust you, want to be with you, want to be friends with you, want to buy from you, or etc. And what's really cool, just like you said, human nature doesn't change. The examples he's providing are based in history, based in fact. He would pull up a story, about Napoleon, or about Queen Elizabeth, or some Carl VIII from France or something. And it's so fascinating. It is absolutely fascinating the way he breaks it all down. And of course, another one is a classic, is Influence by Robert Cialdini, and then he's got a follow up book to that called Prefluence, which I actually didn't think, I didn't think it was as good as the first.
Yeah, those are great resources. I'll mention this too because you said a lot of people are afraid of the word sell.
Yeah,
I think part of that is because they've had to deal with bad salespeople at some
yeah,
point in time, what they felt a lot of pressure came in on them. And I'll say this, I've never enjoyed one-on-one sales,
right.
like doing phone sales and things like that. Even in my own business, I run a coaching practice, high ticket coaching. I don't sell it by free discovery calls. I have done them, but I don't like doing them, so I don't do them. I do all of my selling straight from emails, from sales pages, and from videos. Okay, I've done sales through webinars, but I don't even like doing those unless we turn them evergreen.
Yeah,
So it's an ongoing recorded one that we do for webinars. So when we talk about selling, this doesn't mean in-person uncomfortable selling.
right.
Most of your selling can take place, and all of my selling now takes place simply from written or produced materials that I did by myself in my room. So,
No, that's absolutely true. And people are a bit shocked when they ask me about whether I have an office or whatnot, and I don't. I actually have this same laptop. I'm not sure if I can pull it all the way here. So this is a 13-inch MacBook. Obviously, I upgraded over the years, but it's the same 13-inch MacBook from which I do everything. And you really don't need to go and talk to people or get them on the phone or whatever, a lot of it can be done in a safe environment where you don't have to risk embarrassing yourself, or where you don't have to put direct pressure on somebody. But I also want to say that you can be ethical and still sell really well if you understand the difference between pressuring somebody, unethically pressuring them, and creating urgency in your offer.